released in 1992 for the Sega Genesis. We have the arcade port of Captain America and the Avengers. This is a classic beat-em-up brawler that had elements of a side-scrolling shooter. And here we have the true-to-arcade form Sega Genesis version. Unlike the NES version, it had nothing to do with the arcade game. Let's pop it in the old Genesis and give it a try.
The Avengers!
Alright, right off the bat you can see that just like the arcade, you could select from 4 different Avengers. Captain America, Iron Man, the Vision, and Hawkeye. Alright, this game does have a lot of text in the beginning. Just helps build the anticipation. Now, the thing I remember most about Captain America and the Avengers, the arcade game, was that it was 4-player simultaneous gameplay. You could have up to 3 other friends with you playing, and that was the mark of a really good beat-em-up. That you could have multiple people playing at the same time, and a good beat-em-up would just suck the quarters right out of your pocket. You could sit there and feed it quarters all day, as per its design. These games were basically intended to have you just non-stop drop quarters down them. Now you'll notice at the top of the screen that you have a health meter. It's actually a number counter. It starts off at 100, and I think you get 100 points of health for every quarter you dropped in. So you can like really build your health up just by dropping a whole load of quarters in the machine. Now obviously that method does not work on the home video game conversion of the arcade game. So you're stuck with a limited number of continues. You can see that at the top left-hand corner, it says C equals 3. That's 3 continues. Now, although this game does allow for 2-player simultaneous gameplay, it does not allow for 4-player simultaneous gameplay, like the arcade. But that's just a minor gripe. All in all, this game plays very close to the arcade classic, and that's a good thing. But I did find that the difficulty level was a bit on the easy side. Now, I haven't played the original arcade version in a very long time, so I can't really compare it against the difficulty level of that because I don't really remember it. But, that being said, this game was fairly easy. My first run through, I got like halfway through the game, I think. So let's move on to player controls. And the controls in this game aren't bad. You have the option to adjust your buttons to any configuration you like. You have 2 attack buttons and 1 jump button. And different combinations of those 3 buttons do different things. For example, if you press down both attack buttons at the same time, then you do a special move. With Captain America, that special move is to throw your shield across the screen. But each of the 4 players have their own unique special move. Now, one thing that I did find was that doing the special move was all too easy to destroy your enemies like no problem. You could just keep chucking your shield if you're Captain America, like I did just there, and the enemies basically don't have a chance.
You can't escape! You will be the one escaping!
You gotta love the voiceover work on the Sega Genesis. There is such a great amount of compression on the voices in order to fit them on the cartridge with the limited amount of data that they sound like really bad. And that's always the case on the Sega Genesis. Alright, this is interesting. This is where the game changes from a beat-em-up to a side-scrolling shooter. Now, the actual quality of that side-scrolling shooter part of it is questionable, but it is interesting to see how they just changed, the actual genre of the game midway through, at least for a brief little bit of time. But as far as side-scrolling shooters go, this is by no means challenging. It's actually, a walk in the park. Now, for some reason, I seem to remember the original arcade version, the side-scrolling shooting parts of the original arcade version, to be much more fast-paced than this Genesis version. I could be wrong on that, but the version on the Genesis just seems extremely slow, and because it seems extremely slow, it actually becomes extremely easy because you can see things coming a mile away, and you know, it's basically impossible to fail the side-scrolling shooting part of this game. Alright, here we come to the second boss, who was actually not that hard to beat either. I mean, basically all you do is pelt him with your shield non-stop, or whatever kind of special projectile weapon you happen to have, depending on what character you're playing. He does, you know, shoot missiles and lasers and all kinds of things at you, giant fists. But, you know, it's more or less not that hard to beat, as you can see. And now we transition back into the original side-scrolling beat-em-up style gameplay. And there you have it, Captain America and the Avengers for the Sega Genesis. An excellent port of the arcade game, not that difficult of a game to play, but fun nonetheless. Now, it should be noted that this game is not that cheap of a game. I mean, most Sega Genesis games are in the relatively inexpensive price point and price category. Not so much so with Captain America the Avengers. It will cost you somewhere between $20 and $30, depending on how complete you want your copy of it. Whether you want just the cartridge, or if you want the cartridge box and manual, etc., etc. Now, if you'd like to pick up a copy, I do have it available at my online video game store, link in the description box. I'm Dommy from Classic Games Revisited. Until next time.